Archer and Daniel Protoman. Daniel Protoman.
How's everybody doing?
How y'all doing, guys? So this is a panel that we did in Toronto, but you know, it's a smaller show, so we wanted to do it again for a bigger audience. We wanted to do a segment where we really show deeply how a toy is made, like really deeply how a toy is made. So Vector Prime is the new hotness toy that came out during Legacy United, so we figured, you know, he was in Transformers 1, you know, a little indie movie I'm sure maybe 2 of you saw. So we're going to talk about Vector Prime, literally like his early inception, just a sprinkle of an idea, all the right down to a retail product. And of course, this guy had everything to do with it. So Aaron, let's take it away.
This is a rare time where we're going to see Takara stuff, model stuff, really the nitty-gritty of toy designs for the original Vector Prime. I was with the brand 20 years, started on Beast Wars, and kind of around the 4th movie is when I left. So, all right, Vector Prime. What this is a character development for a story purpose. There's always the opportunity to bring forward Optimus, Prowl, Jazz, whatever. But on occasion, the story calls for an iconic character that does something particular. In the case of Cybertron, we wanted a character that was pretty epic, that could kind of cut between. It originally was cut between universes, but then it was kind of cut between time and space a little bit. The original concept was slightly different. So we knew he'd be old, we knew he'd be magical in a way, we didn't know how yet. So this is one of my sketches, just really wacky, like how different can we go? And when you design stuff like this, it's not a goal to keep this, it's just an inspirational target to kind of get people to think different. So this looks pretty radical. I would have never made this, but this gets people thinking differently. Early on, he was going to be this kind of iconic Autobot character, and his head was going to be the Autobot logo. Kind of was going to open up and do this stuff. Takara actually made a model of that head at one point. Okay. In the end, I decided that identifying the Autobot symbol, sigil, logo, icon, to one character was a bit too much. I don't think the brand should live with that kind of decision. So this is another early sketch, trying to get this ancient feel. You know, this was probably before I considered him one of the 13, but I knew he'd be old. So we were looking at Swiss watches, earrings, old clocks and things, trying to find a way to make an ancient-looking character.
And you can see how we're getting a little closer to what would be.
There was a lot of kind of Egyptian overtones that started to come in as well. The early ship was pretty different. You know, we were working out the story. So he was going to show, you know, where they were going and stuff with some sort of animation. What's this one? Oh, this is
At what point if he was going to be a combiner?
Yeah, different ways to think about this stuff. I don't think this one went very far. So as we got more into the ancientness and the clocks and time and space and all that, you can see where he started to get gnarly in that way. I'm sure at some point I sent the Darth Maul Sith Infiltrator to Takara as kind of a general shape reference, and sometimes they go very literal with the reference I would send. So we actually had to pull it back from the Sith Infiltrator at one point. This is Eric's Miller sketch.
Yeah, early ideas. Now Takara side.
So I'm doing all this up front, trying to create a character and need for the story, set him in a unique place along the other characters, and Takara is helping on their side, figuring out how to make a cool product. So this is a Jima-san's, or this is kind of
Kuniharu.
This is how he would start what are the features going to be, and what am I really accounting for as I start to put in my pivots and hinges. At one point, he had this kind of wheel of things that he was going to pull from to kind of give that sense of a portal that he was in charge of. We backed off that and went with the swords.
Maybe a phoenix.
Yeah, early on, this is kind of how Takara looked at it. When we didn't know they could draw how they want to draw it, but this is pretty close to where we ended up. We start making even more granular notes about articulation and where stuff should fit. The nitty-gritty of toy design is like you really have to communicate every little thing. It's fun to draw the pretty pictures and have a model come in, but if you don't identify for the model maker every little thing you want, you're not doing the job. So you're going to see a lot of this kind of stuff. We're constantly refining and refining it. Maybe there's some costing in here. Maybe we find out exactly what the box size is, so we start to
Settle on a price point.
settle on a price point and scale and everything.
At that point, you see on the top left there, mega. So price point is kind of figured out at that point.
And now you can definitely see this is the item that was made, for the most part, compared to some of the earlier sketches. You can see the Sith Infiltrator influence up on the top. That's the Sith Infiltrator.
That's the actual Sith Infiltrator.
That's not reference, that's
From Star Wars.
So that's where we were like, okay, let's make these wings longer and pointier and change that silhouette.
And there's the Autobot logo on the face.
Yeah. But the goal that we would always have is to get there as early as possible. You don't want to do a bunch of design iterations. So you can tell even in these early sketches, the feet and the shapes of the legs and the shoulders, that's what the toy looks like. You know, so even in these costing and feature exercises, we're getting more refined. Minicon stuff, good old safeguard. Is he a gun or a ship? I don't know.
He's a double blaster ship, gun, triple changer.
And then you start to get into the accurate planning of actual scale.
And maybe explain this a little bit, because like the turnarounds, because this is a big part of Transformer design, is like, especially with scaling and costing, with this grid paper. Like people don't realize how much this is used, especially back then for making Transformer toys.
The whole time I worked on Transformers, we didn't do any computer work with the car.
Yeah, no computers. It was done with grid paper like this.
Yeah. When I started on Beast Wars, they sent us photographs in booklets for the transformation process of all those Beast Wars gray models that we would get. So somewhere there are these Japanese travel photo albums, you know, of gray model transformation photos. Because it was old school back then. So this does scale, it starts to see how the box fit would be, it's getting accurate for the costing. All you can tell, they can start to tell it in weigh, you know, by the scale. All costing is based on human touch and weight. How many people have to touch it to put it together, paint it, stuff it in a box, and what does that weigh to ship across the world? But that's not the price is going to be the problem. This is the final costing piece. You know, this is how the toy is made.
You took it apart. There's every gear,
We need to purchase 6 metal pins, 2 metal springs, whatever.
And that's supposed to be safeguard.
Yeah.
Much more simple.
And then there's a slight, I wish we had a picture of the model here, because then we take that model apart and put it on these pieces of paper that represent the mold plan. So everything in this is white, you know, made of ABS, and that's a material that could be painted.
And just for fun, again, July '04, so we're still in the middle of Energon at that time.
Yeah, and I already have models.
So to give you guys an idea, like when you guys are watching Energon, what's going on at that exact moment at Hasbro? Like they're already queuing up the next thing.
I never knew when things came out, other than like a launch date.
You're in a bubble.
Because I was already maybe
What's new? What's the next thing?
6 waves ahead of something else. So that's how this works. Sometimes I would move these pieces around before we'd set the mold. Depending on the color arrangement. Hasbro was in charge of color arrangement, and then we would deviate based on taste to market's colors. But we, for whatever reason, led color. So mold color particularly is what we're focused on here. That's ABS.
Just really showing all the, there we go, color layouts.
So this was how we did deco sheets, color guides, depending on how you reference that, back in the day. Eric did this is Eric, did this deco sheet.
That's the Takara color scheme, because
Yeah, you can tell.
there's different costing and different budget for Takara as opposed to Hasbro.
Most of us here in the room probably know this, but Takara can make 10 toys and sell them for 10 different prices. The US model, the global model is we need to sell 6 deluxe at this price, 4 at this price. We can't have a middle price and then a different price. And if you look at Armada packaging or Energon packaging for Takara, they have probably 16 different package sizes.
Oh yeah,
It's
Armada
crazy.
especially.
Yeah, and that's a big difference too.
Like to just go quickly, like Hot Shot that we all know from Armada didn't have the light feature.
Yeah.
The Japanese version did, because that little LED would have added to the cost, but then you would have to make a new price point and packaging.
Minicons with pins or Japanese.
Yeah.
Minicons with hinges that pop off.
So-
US.
It's a whole other animal. There we go, painted models.
So then there's all that information gets sent to somebody to make a model that gets used for photography. Those models, you make up the 6 painted models for Toy Fair, Hong Kong Toy Fair, a Walmart up front, BotCon, all these different things. So we have to determine how many of these painted models we would need.
And pretty much like what he's saying is like a lot of times if you saw catalogs and the toy didn't look like how it looked in the catalog, you know, the infamous blue streak that people always would talk about. It's because sometimes that's what was used for photography.
Every toy you ever see photographed is a prototype. It's not the toy. You wouldn't have time. So this is just how we approached the complexity of having a clear piece that you wanted to opt out on. And that's another version.
December, and then how it changes from one to the other, figuring out the costing from December, like if you go back, December 2004, and then you go forward, and we're January 2005, and how, we should move the colors here and there.
Those numbers, if you're not unfamiliar, are Pantone color numbers, and that's how we would communicate with the vendors. Although the vendors just did color matching, they really didn't care about technical numbers, really. They just kind of made it work. This is how Takara, so this is a step that would have happened a little bit before. This is how Takara does their sculpt inputs. This is an older one, because that's the
Because it's still got the Autobot mask.
But this is what would go to the model maker to make the toy. And on Transformers, they're not sculpted. They are made. They are all cut from styrene and assembled with glue together to get those models that I'm talking about. So this, they would do a left, right, back on every quarter angle. And that's what they use as the guide to make that model. So there's his original head.
What would have been?
Yeah. Nice head. It's a good head.
The general vibe is still there, and there's the final one.
Yeah. So we really just wanted not to focus on the Autobot part of that character or what his role there was, and just say he's old, he's ancient, and that's the Egyptian kind of head he ended up with. One of the few guys that kind of has a triangular head.
Pharaoh sculpted. Yeah, there's not much of that.
Yeah, got a weird shape.
Yeah, there's a good, that Pharaoh's crest, the cowl.
Yeah. So all that work we did, reference and talking about all that stuff, that's how it manifests itself.
So we're getting closer to what would be the final product. This is plastics.
Yep.
So where's the clear plastics? Where's the ABSs? Where's the POMs? Where's the PVCs? Where do they all go? which
I don't know why that's necessarily called out here, but it is.
that's how they
It would have been called out in the mold plans.
Yeah, that's how they colored it.
And then all that stuff gets sent, obviously, for the animation development.
Which then we'll get into that, turning him into a cartoon character.
Yeah. So this is just the internal development of doing all that.
His prototype colors. At one point he was going to be gold, but you have a story with that.
Which story?
Being how he was gold. And then
Oh, yeah. Like so, when he was in his ancient form, he's shiny and gold and all that over the millions and millions of years.
He was
But just like our VM flakes off
like,
on our toys, he used to be VM, and now he's the one that we
what
put
you
out.
have now is a worn out.
So to me, the redeco,
not Sentinel, Vector.
the redeco of Vector in gold is actually his original form. Like, to me, that's my headcanon. I don't know if that's what's on the package, but that's how I see it.
You just sold a bunch of vintage toys.
All right. Sorry. I'm sure they're all missing their sword.
Yeah, so, but that's why when they were first developing the show, gold was the color they were going to go with.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then
Again, change ancient and different and unique, and so that we were going that way. But I don't know if you guys are aware, there's a thing called GPS, and gold doesn't always work for us.
So imagine if Sentinel was gold plastic today.
Yeah.
Not Sentinel, Vector. Then how many would be broken today?
With all those different molds too, the golds wouldn't have matched up. You've all seen that, because some of them can't be painted. You'd have those PLM.
PLM plastics.
Anyway.
Some nice shots there. This one is where if his wings would have made a shield, if they would have been detachable, and then that's the final. That was used from a DVD cover for Japan.
Yep. So I like it. This is he's on my top 5 list for sure. You can definitely see the difference between the two markets.
Even you can see how the Cyber Planet key in the Western market, clear, no deco budget really for that. But Takara, like you said, could be anything it needs to be. So let's paint it up. Packaging differences. You could talk about how you want to sell a product on the shelves.
Yeah,
this one send a message.
This one was tricky. A white figure on a white package in a form that's not automatically identifiable. You know, it's not a sports car, a dump truck. You know, it's a weird spaceship when you look at it from that view. Those were always things that were considered a struggle. So this guy was probably considered visually a struggle on shelf, but we knew he was a great product and had a spot to show, so that would overcome.
Yeah, he was a story-driving figure, so...
If it was a character that wasn't in the show, we would never do this kind of form, because it doesn't look good in package. So I could get away with it if I really...
And so these are the redecos.
Yeah, so there you go. The hunt is on.
Yeah. So there's that one.
So to me, this is how he was birthed from Primus, the gold version. I guess that's the way to say it.
So if you want like his first, and then there
I don't know what this is.
That was the Universe 2.0 version. The assumption is that they were trying to go for the last Autobot kind of look. This is when they were filling out the Universe assortments, which is a lot of repaints of previous product.
They had two attestations.
Yeah, of course. The
Bacon.
Bacon one, that's always a good one.
That's a good one. I wish I still had one.
Yeah.
So that mold does get used, and then
Here's today.
So it's nice for me and nice for everybody that that old toy can be brought back and is meaningful enough that they still find use for it. My thing when I was there, it was like we were tending a garden. Everything we're creating is part of the assets to be used, redeployed, put on a shelf, whatever. And I'm glad they are looking at the shelves and pulling things out. And we can still celebrate these characters, so it's great. And then I do a podcast, if you're unfamiliar, and then he and I do a podcast together, long form, and just deep dive into these brands. Mostly Transformers, but I do talk about my Batman days and my Alien Resurrection days. And we did a Beyblade.
Beyblade one was pretty good, actually. I like
So if you're into podcasts, check that out. YouTube.
And it's all interconnected. Like Beyblade has Transformer DNA in it, you know, bringing over Japanese brands, repurposing them, cartoons. And we had Steve Bono on that, who was a great guest that we had. So
if you're into this level of granular toy talk, check it out. You'll
especially if you're trying to get into the industry, it's good stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some of the episodes we did.
So we did an Energon episode. That was pretty cool. We just scratched the surface on that.
Yeah. Oh no. And then the art one. That one was very popular. Talking about that.
We got to do a part 2 to that one.
Yeah. Alternators. There's the Batman stuff.
I did Total Justice.
Yeah.
I don't know what happened to their skin.
It was the 90s.
It was the 90s.
It was a different time.
Did the Beyblade.
That's a great episode. Even if you're not a Beyblade fan, if you're a Transformer fan, there's a lot of connected tissue there. Because Steve, well, he worked with alternators, so you see there's a lot of parallels of just how do you take a Japanese brand. And that's also Brian too. You know, like taking Japanese brands, how do you localize them here, and how do you make it for that market? Trademarks, names. Like there's Beyblades called Death. What was it? The Twin Towers one. Terror Tops. Ooh. And this was around 2001.
Yeah. But Bono couldn't use Terror Tops.
Terror Tops. I don't think that's a good one.
But
that was a Japanese name.
I had a different legal team I worked with, so I could do Terror Cons for some reason. But he couldn't do Terror Tops. So.
But it's a good one to listen to, even if you're not a Beyblade fan. Just from the business side of it, it's fascinating.
Just proof that, depending on your legal point of view, you can talk yourself in or out of anything.
How you talk. And then, of course, this weekend.
Yeah.
Although apologize for the book.
I don't have volume 3 anymore.
Yeah, volume 3.
This is what I do now on Instagram and draw on the instruction sheets. A lot of you have seen those or might even have one. That's what I have fun doing. That's kind of how I spend my social media time.
Go check out the website.
Yeah. I got all kinds of stuff. It's mostly Transformers.
Yeah.
All right.
That's it.
So wanted to give a little bit of more inside view, almost trying to go back to the old school days where we would show stuff like that. That guy's old enough now, and he's been reissued in the new form, so I figure it's safe to show some wacky stuff. It's almost ancient history now, because they don't develop the toys to that level.
It's almost 20 years.
It is a lot more computer.
Well, everything we just showed was 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So that's pretty wild when you think about it. Yeah, yes it was.
Yeah. I was, a lot younger.
That was all developed in 2004.
All right, so with that, we can start any random questions anybody has.
Yeah.
And do we want to...
Do we have a mic?
I don't think we have another spare mic, but if we want to, If you want to let up, right here's the mic.
And we could talk about this stuff or any questions. That's fine.
My question is, so if I remember Vectorprime's key gimmick is he makes all that fancy sound. Was there ever a consideration for him to have like a pop-up gimmick or like something to flip out on him? Or did you always settle on just sound? Because
sound was a big thing. The sword.
because I figured that would be like expensive to pull that electronics in the toy.
When you make electronics, you have like the battery, the speaker, the wiring to deal with the contacts for those batteries. And they have to, it becomes a box that you have to then design around.
Yeah.
And we focused on that part when we didn't have any spring-loaded.
So that was always from the get-go?
That's
okay.
Some other characters, we focused only on their spring-loaded gimmicks and would never put electronics in them.
Hi, Mr. Archibald. My name is Don.
They've made a lot of RCs.
Yes, I have plenty of RCs, but the question, I had a couple questions real quick. I'm sorry you never got to do your Optimus Prime jumbo machine version that you mentioned. Two things. Could you explain about case balancing because as we see now, we have deluxes that are the size of the Studio Series Bumblebee. You have some that have a lot of paint in the same wave, some that have almost no paint and it's all plastic. So could you explain how you look at a case? And also, when you were in business, third party was kind of just getting started, something you really didn't you knew about it, but you couldn't know about it.
Yeah.
Kind of thing. Now, 15 years on or so, with the explosion, have you seen anything that you are personally impressed by or wish you could have done like that?
Well, I'll answer that part first. All of it's impressive because to make any of these transforming products independently is crazy hard to do. Crazy hard to do. And there are a lot of them and a lot of nice ones. I can't speak to the play feature and the delicacy and all that stuff. But I'm very impressed. Again, I often say I just wish they'd make their own items versus echoes of items.
All that talent.
But yeah, it's so much talent that I wish could be found to do new things for the brand or transforming play. But you know, that's preference. It's all good stuff.
I mean, if you need a Devastator, you have plenty to pick from.
Yeah. And then the case balancing stuff, in my era, everything was very balanced. I had 50 deco ops on this deluxe, this deluxe, this deluxe, this deluxe. Everything had to weigh pretty much the same. Now the way they have so much different variety of form, they make trade-offs in a certain wave. So they can go, okay, this character doesn't need a lot of paint, and we'll put in a spring-loaded projectile. This character has all kinds of paint to make him whole. Therefore, maybe we don't have extra stuff in that one. And they kind of average all those items out across the wave to the price they want.
Because I always felt like in the prime wave of Arachnid, her toy wasn't that great.
A good example to use is wrestling figures. If they know that they're going to have a flamboyant, colorful wrestler like an Ultimate Warrior or Asuka, they'll make sure that her wave is going to have Stone Cold Steve Austin, black tights, boots. Yeah,
Okay.
3 simple guys so they could cost that properly because they know the budget.
Because you still look at it as like the whole wave as a box costing out, not.
So I just said that, so you can average out that wave and it all works very nice. Well, you get to wave 3 and 2 of those are redecos and something else is new. All of a sudden that math doesn't work again. And then you end up like, oh shoot, do we have to raise the price of this item? Do we have to take something out? And that's where the whole industry is in flux a little bit. Like they're speaking more to collectors, so they're trying to make items to capture that emotional response versus toys. So they almost can't average it out like I did, every item being the same. There's so much variety in how they're approaching all the echoes of all the eras, right? Because none of them at any point were made by the same standard. You know, Sideburn and RID, his paint and clear windows and chrome compared to Hot Shot even, right?
Yeah.
They don't have, I mean, it's all this giant costing exercise that Hasbro hit their, desired revenue, right? So that's what happens. I don't know if that's a good answer.
Oh,
but
no, that's
what
great.
happens.
It's always bugged me that a figure might suffer and another figure has a great build. It's just.
Yeah, that started on Star Wars actually, because Boba Fett really,
Weathering.
at the time the original Boba Fett came out, it blew, like it had probably 100 more deco ops than any previous Kenner toy. And it was like, everyone was like, what is that? I had 15 paint ops on Batman. So this Boba Fett shows up at like 160. And it was like, what are they doing over there? But then they had to do Darth Vader in the wave, they had to do C-3PO in that wave because to average that out. And over the years, Lucas demanded that. Now Star Wars stuff's decoed like crazy. And the price will be commensurate.
Well, thank you, Mr. Archer. It's great seeing you again.
All right, thank you.
Hi guys. Something I was curious about, because it kind of relates to a job with making cars at a factory, and how that process works when making a new car. Is that similar to how plastic molds are made for just forms? And I referred to the picture you had before of Vector Pound's parts in pure gray on a sheet. Did someone custom 3D print that back in 2004 or something like that? Or how was that very first model made to be as detailed as it is?
That original model is made of styrene.
Styrene, yeah.
Cut styrene and glued together. And then that gets cast in urethane, gets painted gray, primer gray.
Okay.
And that's those photos.
And
then
someone just custom
they
cut
would take
that.
it apart, and then we'd literally lay each part out on a piece of paper. And
Yeah.
they would photograph
And that's
it.
how the mold comes
And
out.
that's what
okay.
you see there, yeah.
So
I mean, it
someone-
was really rustic.
So someone like custom designed that with their own hands at the machine shop or something, or
Yeah,
that is
Takara
insane.
works with a couple houses.
Oh, okay, Takara makes
Model
sense.
houses, and these models come in little white boxes, and you open them up, and these little gray models are inside, and they're amazing. And
Is that how that's always been done through all Transformers
Yeah.
and toys in general? So everything comes from Japan first, and even
they
today?
do the model making. They do the model
okay.
making.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I don't know if you-
Hasbro does the story stuff and the feature stuff and colorways and maybe figure use and
It's a lot of
legal
think-
names.
think
Yeah.
Yeah, and then together we go, okay, and they make their money off the production of the
So
product.
they never changed from G1 because G1 the original toys from Diaclone. That's all Japanese. So from day one, it's all come from
Yeah.
Japan first.
So all those photograph books I mentioned,
Yeah.
all that, they've been doing that. Had to been doing that.
That's fascinating. that
Since-
Japan does all that. That's cool.
Yeah.
And so with 3D printing today, does Hasbro have more in-country designers doing that? Is it all stuff from Japan? Everything they break.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we could take it up to whatever level we wanted to,
Got it,
and then
okay.
they would pick it up and run. But they always had, there's a special sauce to
That's
it.
crazy talent. That's really cool. All right. Thank you.
Oh, hello, Mr. Archer. Remember me?
How's it going?
Fine. So, Aaron Archer, I know that that you're now a former Hasbro employee, but I'm not sure if I asked you this before, but is your creativity and ideas going to be sorely missed in Hasbro?
I got my run. Thank you.
And they live on. Like
Yeah.
This character that we talked about.
Yeah, I'm fortunate that they're remaking some of these characters, Armada characters and so on and so forth, that I can still now talk about new things, not just something I did 25 years ago.
And I mean, when you think of like the original 13, like the original 13, which was something that he think tanked years ago, like there's great images on his live streams of those images they have, like just when they were first thinking up Micronus, and it's a mini-con, we're not sure what his name is yet, and now how that lives in Transformers 1,
But I'm very proud of my time. Things move on. A lot of great products been made after I left. It's all good.
All right, well, thank you.
Thank you.
May your legacy live on in those Transformers toys.
Awesome. I appreciate that.
Hello, Mr. Archer. So we know that from the Beast Wars era to the Armada trilogy, all the toys had a lot of gimmicks, but also still included a certain amount of posability. So my question is, how do you determine the number of gimmicks put into a toy whilst also keeping a certain level of articulation and also having the toy still function without being overloaded with all of that, all those gimmicks? And there was a question earlier about the budget of a wave and the case. Does it have anything to do with that?
Yeah, it's kind of similar answer. You want to put focus to the product. How is it going to be communicated? How is it a character from a show that you can show the heroic animation, or is it about the feature play? Like, check out this, and Armada Optimus raises up, and you focus on that communication, and that'll dictate how many gimmicks or features the toy can probably withstand. So Armada Optimus, it was about that whole rising up thing and self-transforming. Therefore, he doesn't really have a lot of other extra things beyond that. And then so everyone is a trade-off, whether you want to be overly decoed or have a lot of features, but most of it's communication about one feature. It's easier to communicate, hey, this thing jumps, versus, hey, it jumps, it spits, it rolls. That's too much in a commercial environment or even on the front of a package. So it's really about focus is how you get to the features and how big you want that feature to be.
Yeah, but when you compare Optimus to the 12 Megatron, who has a lot of gimmicks, the missiles, the cage.
Yeah.
So how do you determine specifically
Yeah,
for?
well, he was different price point, and
Capture.
yeah, and his thing was being a base about capture. So everything, You could just shove all those minicons in all those
Yeah.
places. Whereas Optimus, it was, obviously different. Yeah.
When it was capturing minicons, this is a base where they could be, platforms, turrets, collect minicons, put them on there, So there's like two different ways that you're trying to convey a story through a character. Megatron was his own base, but in a capture play. The claws in the front, he captures them. There's that little claw.
I thought of him as a rolling prison.
Yeah.
Often for the minicons. Back when we started these kind of discussions, when I'm making little ramps and all that stuff for that character. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. It helps us when we're presenting back in the day to tell that story. Tell that story to the management that we're presenting to. It's not just, here's a thing and it's going to shoot something. And it's like, this is the character and this is what he's doing and all that. And that's how we sell that stuff into.
Thank you for your time today. Going back to the example you gave of the Japanese team taking the Silver Infiltrator reference literally, did you ever find that there were times where things got lost in translation when working with the Japanese team or when the Japanese team would communicate things to you guys? And was there anything that surprised you for good or bad about how the process works in Japan?
Well, I got a few answers. Hasbro and Takara have been working together a long time, so the wrinkles in the process have been much ironed out, and I feel bad to say this, but they're the most non-Japanese Japanese people you're going to find because of their bad influence from all the Hasbro people over the years. Okay, so so what was your original question?
That was lost in translation.
So we didn't, not too much stuff was lost in translation. Sometimes there'd be some market differences. The Japanese Transformers market has been getting out of the kid space for a long time, and Hasbro was still working in that space, and so sometimes they were like, yeah, we're not gonna take your stupid roleplay sword, we're not gonna worry about some of this other stuff. So sometimes that thing, just market needs. And then conversely, things like Wing Saber, Overload, the combining, Leo Kaiser or Breaker, those are Takara needed things, so that we'd compromise. Often the word I say, we'd compromise. So when they would need things, it wasn't never conflict. It was like, here's what we got in our market, whether it was a date of launch or a focus on a particular character. They do a lot of day-and-day drops still for Golden Week and different things. So that character shows up in the cartoon on Friday, it's at the store on Saturday. That does not happen here. It almost can't happen here. And so there'd be that kind of thing, but never like, I want to do a wolf, I want to do a kitty cat. It wasn't that kind of level.
And to communicate also what's a bullet train to us? Very important to them, but then pickup truck, America, what's that to them? So you have to have that compromise too.
Balance about choice, so that everybody felt decent. My marketers hated when trains showed up, and they really didn't like when pickup trucks showed up. They were that's not.
I see. So like Rail Racer would have been difficult.
Rail Racer only got made because RID was doing so well in orders that they wanted more items, and it was already finished. But they look terrible in a box. They're just a big Twinkie. There's 3 different trains. Those are real trains in Japan that people care about, and our audience is like, okay, they're 3 pretty much white trains. Like, what are you telling me there's a difference,
And I've always said this, everyone here, I want you to picture a train in your head, right now. You just pictured a train from 1920. That's the problem. I'm telling you, and you're probably all agreeing with me, that's the problem. It's the train, we gaslit ourselves into thinking Thomas the Tank Engine forever, so when they did Classics Astro Train, we didn't do a steam train, we did a bullet train, because that's what Japan wanted to communicate,
And my father retired from the railroad. If there was any designer that was ever going to make a train, that would have been me. Man, that wasn't going to happen. That wasn't going to happen. So those that's where the negotiation would come in, I guess. But it was not conflict at all. And what I often say, and I try to say it every chance I get, it was one big team. It's easy to go us and them, Hasbro and Takara. Daily communication across 15 people on every aspect of every item that's going on. it's one big team. You know, they're just on that side is where the model shop is, and technical skills and history, and you know, we do our stuff there, but it's really one big back and forth.
Thank you so much, guys.
Sure, thank you. Howdy.
You're absolutely right. I did immediately picture a steam train.
Oh, no, this has come up a lot.
I want to ask, so you were showing the Vector Prime, like start to finish, and then when you got to the redeco, it's like the gold redeco. Was it like a gold plastic syndrome problem that thing ended up so like weird mustard looking?
Yellowy? Yeah. The gold plastic syndrome happens because your desire to have something look really metallic, they throw in gold flakes into the plastic, virgin plastic. If you think of plastic as a net that holds together, those irritants are cutting the net. The more of them you put in, the easier that net is to cut. So as they pump up the metallic in the plastic to make it shiny, because those flakes only show on maybe the top surface and a half. So all that other flake that's deeper in is just causing what becomes gold plastic syndrome, because the net isn't holding together anymore, and that's a fault of too much metallic in the plastic, and that's why they start going more yellowy. So that's a technical.
The way I compared to, like, if you took like hard caramel, like you hit it with a hammer, like it has that same kind of consistency. And again, like over time, like when it's gold plastic, when it's new, it's fine. But as time progresses, it's like oxygen gets in there.
It takes those flakes, and it's a point where it breaks. Just think of that. Think of a fishing net just getting cut with metallic flakes, and over time, that net won't be a net anymore, right? And that's what's happening with your toys.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hi. If you guys had access to the HasLab program back in the day, what would you guys done with like a $500 budget for like Armada?
I honestly, I don't even think, I came from the old world of kid-focused toys. The idea of having a $500 item to make, it doesn't even register to my style of design.
For him, the big one was Masterpiece.
Masterpiece and Unicron. Unicron was a game changer at the company. That was a giant, expensive toy then. Expensive. And the 20th anniversary Optimus as well. Kind of, in my era, those were rare standout, trophies in a way. You're doing so good, you can get away with this in your brand. Now the whole brand lives in that space. And I didn't design toys. I didn't learn how to design toys in that era. I come from Batman and spring-loaded stuff and kid-focused cartoons and things. So if you said to me, hey, can you make a $500 Vector Prime? I wouldn't be interested. I'm not that interested in intricate toys. I like the characters and all that stuff. So I don't know. I wouldn't know what to do with that money. 20th anniversary Optimus was my way of spending a lot of money.
Thank you.
Sure.
Hey, Ethan. I used to make Lego Transformers and stuff of my own, and toy design has already been fascinating to me. So my question is, when you're designing any of them, what do you focus on primarily, like the posability, the coloring, or handling, and all that?
For a Transformer,
yeah,
particularly, we would always start with. In my era, it would be the vehicle, because it was packaged in vehicle mode. So that gives you the volume and some of the shape theory that you can then extrapolate a figure and know, okay, a rounded Audi TT looking car is going to have a rounded robot that becomes hotshot. It's not pointy, his robot's not pointy. And it's all based on that original alt mode volume. Now they do the robots, and I think you can all see they design the robots to look great in package. But then when you go to alt mode, it's probably the most, as an average, the most compromised alt modes you've seen in decades. I mean, because they're focused on the robot for package. So it's really on how you want to focus that. After the movie, they became personalities. A lot of more people knew names, so they wanted to start focusing on the personalities, not the puzzle. So that's how that happened.
Thank you.
Good morning. Thank you for showing us that presentation. It was pretty neat to kind of get some of the insight to what goes on in the background that we don't really see. And just kind of got me wondering if you have any insight into, once a product is into production, how much of that is automated machine done, like the assembly, putting in the patching stuff, and how much of it is human interaction and requires a human to actually put the product together?
That's 90% human. Yeah.
It's
a hands-on.
At the time, Chinese factories, at the time, now it's Vietnam. At the time it was Chinese factories.
Yeah.
Like, there's some great videos online of like, even, I'd say, Last Night Age of Extinction era. You know, like you could see the whole building of the, I think it was like the leader class Optimus, and you could see it in the Vietnam factories. It goes down a conveyor belt, they take it off of like a model sprue almost.
It's all hand.
And then they
transform you buys.
Yeah.
Made by someone.
The deco, they'll take a head, they'll put it on a machine that'll go. That's probably about as automatic. I mean,
Yeah, extra, you know.
the machine will put the paint on the face for the gray of Optimus. They put that head back on the conveyor. It goes to the next lady down there who's going to put it on the ball joint, and that's the whole process.
In some cases, when they finish that, someone transforms it to put it in the box.
Yeah.
All your Transformers have been transformed.
You weren't the first.
You can argue with Hasbro on that one.
So when you sell it, you say never transform. You're lying.
That's not every case, but a lot of the time it is.
And maybe the new ones, because now they're in robot mode.
Yeah, maybe not.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I'll put that YouTube.
Sure. I'm full of obscure knowledge.
Hey, so I know you have a lot of restrictions while designing a figure. So, is there anything you wish you could do while designing a figure but couldn't?
Well, like I've said, I was very focused on the practical nature. We want this to be a $10 toy. We want it to be a good guy, and I would just work within that. So I didn't have a lot of extra desires that someone said I couldn't do or got costed out. I was pretty planned with what I chose to do. And when you're planned and you can articulate the plan, people don't mess with it. So I didn't have to change a lot or get, worry about, they took something out, or I was well planned. So I got lucky that way.
All right, thanks for answering.
Sure.
Hello. I have to thank you again for getting me into this franchise and this great community with your work. But I was wondering, when you were putting the idea of the original 13 together, can you talk a little bit about the process of kind of taking like pre-existing characters and incorporating them into that, like Alpha Trion, Leech Maximo?
The 13, there were a few characters in popular entertainment, Leech Maximo, maybe Alpha Trion. We were creating Vector Prime. I think that.
Mechanics a little bit.
Yeah. So we knew that there was a number of 13, we knew that there were these guys, and then I kind of plucked the classic play patterns, a minicon, a beast, a combiner, somebody that makes all the weapons, and kind of, a connection to Megatron and a connection to Optimus. And that's kind of how we filled it out. Kind of very practical, very built from the lore, and what's already there. Kind of was straightforward for all, because so much good track had been laid.
Right.
So I take credit for it, but I just put it together. It was largely there.
Cool.
So
thanks.
Yeah.
Hello. Sorry, I'm short. So in terms of like reusing molds, because for example with the Vector Prime that just came out, I think it was the legs mainly was reused from the G-axis that just came out. At what part of the design process are those kinds of conversations happening? We want you to be making Vector Prime, but in the future we're going to be doing this, so just keep that in mind. Or is it more of like
They probably made G-axis and then over time said, in general, what can we do with this mold if we change anything to make it a different character?
So like G-axis came
It
first,
probably
they're
was,
like,
I don't know if Vector Prime was in the picture when they made G-axis, but someone said, oh, well, we did this and moved these and added this, we got Vector Prime.
Okay.
It's more like after the fact, how can you best maximize the potential? That's how I think it is. I don't know they totally.
I find a lot now what they do, and I know Evan talked about this you'll see on the mold sprue like 3 heads on there already. And they'll be like, oh, that Astro Train mold always had a Galaxy shuttle head on there. A lot of times now, I've said this 100 times, Hasbro doesn't waste a mold. Like, they'll put something together, but they'll think, what could we do after? Because a Transformer toy is different from a Star Wars toy or Marvel. There's a lot of work that goes into it, parts, pieces, engineering, paint, design, you know.
The deal with Hasbro and Takara also is we have to make the toys we make a model of. So we're very sensitive, we were sensitive about what got modeled, because to eat that whole production, if you canceled it, I'd have to pay for the Takara design time, I'd have to pay for, you know, all the effort we already put in on our side, maybe the cost that model had been made, and I didn't want to pay for that because we split the cost. So if we got to a point where there was a model, we were making that item. Yeah.
And that's why, so now like you have figures, they're almost baked in. Like we have it all the time. Oh hey, look at this Shadow Striker Deluxe. Gee, who else does it look like? Sideburn, you know, like it happens. And I looked at the Megatronus that just came out. Who is going to be his repaint? Thank you. So, you know.
Or like with detritus.
Yeah, so, and there's also stuff that we don't see because they're really good with partials now. You put a new head on it, new shoulders, like the G-axis, you know, you could really stretch it to something else, where if you would have looked at that Vector on its own, maybe you wouldn't have thought G-axis. But new chest, new head, new accessory, that's what He-Man used to do for years. Yeah, Legacy Beachcomber, another fantastic example. Like, I mean,
That's something that happened after I left. Like, I never had gated off heads. We never really did too many partial remolds and stuff. So,
Well, thank you. I will go next.
Okay. Hey, I just want to say thank you. You guys are the greatest fandom. You're nimble. You're open to change. You've been with this for years. I say this: there is not a Batman convention you can go to. There is not a Deadpool convention you can go to. You can go to 5 significant Transformer shows in this world and celebrate with this brand. And it's an amazing thing, and this is a special community. And I love being part of it, and I love interacting with all of you. So, you know, it's a great thing to be a part of. So, it's awesome.